Hello, and welcome to episode 2 for Engines of CP. In today's episode, we will be covering the SD90MAC along with the SD70ACu. So without further delay, let's jump straight into it. The SD70ACu wouldn't be out on today's rails if it wasn't for the SD90MAC. But how did it get this way? And how did GE become the dominator of the locomotive industry today? Well, first, we gotta shove back to the year 1993. Much better. 1993. Ford released the amazing Fox body Mustang. BNSF also didn't exist, but most importantly, the war between North America's largest locomotive builders, General Electric and Electromotive Division, has reached its all-time high. EMD has just recovered in sales after the failure of the SD50. Meanwhile, GE is off living the dream with the sales of their Dash 9 and AC4400 series locomotives. EMD knew that in order to regain their status as the absolute dominator of the market, they would have to develop something that railroads would buy lots of in order to smack GE out of the park. That same year, EMD's designers would then partner with German electronics manufacturer Siemens and would then begin development of the next locomotive. The concept that EMD and Siemens would have in mind would be for a 6,000 horsepower AC traction current locomotive based on the SD80MAC. However, the 710 prime mover, which is currently used by the 80MAC, was not capable of reaching that high horsepower. So, EMD would develop a new prime mover based on that design. The prime mover to be developed would be the 256H, a 16-cylinder powerhouse that's capable of generating 6,250 horsepower. Later, in 1994, EMD would then start testing of a new locomotive designated as the SD90MAC. It would be the higher horsepower variant of the SD80MAC. Why don't we cover the technical specs now, shall we? Starting off with the model name. The SD stands for Special Duty, 90 is the series number, M is for modified, and AC indicates that the locomotive is powered by alternating current. As previously mentioned, the 16-cylinder 256H prime mover generates an outstanding 6,250 horsepower. The locomotive has a length of 80 feet 2 inches, a width of 10 feet 3 inches, and a height of 15 feet 7 inches. With those dimensions, the locomotive comes in at a weight of 425,000 pounds. The locomotive also rides on the EMD HTCR-2 radial trucks with Siemens AC-powered traction motors. The top speed on this unit is rated at a respectable 70 miles per hour, and as for the horn model would be an order-specific detail. However, the standard horn for the units would be the Nathan K3LA. The bell was also the steel bell made by EMD. Units went out into official production that same year, with EMD taking orders from Sean B's favorite railroad, the Union Pathetic. The UP would end up ordering a total of 209 units all throughout 1996 and 1997. All units would be put into service after delivery in those years. However, the Union Pacific would not be pleased with the units whatsoever. Starting off with the biggest issue, wheel slip and overloading. Due to the locomotive's overall size and its excessive amount of horsepower, the locomotives were prone to overloading the prime mover, which creates very heavy wheel slip issues. Along with that, there would be higher maintenance costs due to the bigger and more powerful electronics along with the prime mover. In the end, the Union Pacific would end up derating the units to 4,300 horsepower and would end up replacing the 256H prime mover with a EMD 16-cylinder 710 G3 prime mover. This would only remedy some of the issues such as overloading and stalling. However, wheel slip control issues were still an issue. The Canadian Pacific would end up purchasing 61 SD90MACs from EMD in 1996, but with a catch. After seeing how unreliable the 256H prime mover variant was, CP would order the SD90MACs to come with the 710 G3 prime mover, creating 4,300 horsepower instead of the 6,250 horsepower from the 256. This would also be a change in the name from SD90MAC to SD9043MAC, the 43 indicating the change in horsepower. Order-wise, the locomotive details were practically the exact same as the Union Pacific variants, with the only major differences being the FND ice shield coupler pockets on the rear, carrying extra knuckles in case of a train separation, along with the snow shield telemetry device pocket, which holds the EOT device when in transport. Other than that, the major difference would be the horn. Instead of the Nathan K3LA, it would be the Nathan K3L. Here are a few samples. The units would serve on CP from 1996 to 2011 when they were starting to be pulled out of service for high maintenance costs, and practically the same reasons as the APM kit bags. In 2014, all units would be completely pulled into storage and would be stored at Winnipeg's West End shops. The units would be put up for auction, drained of their fluids, in preparation of scrap. That's until 2018, when CP would contract Progress Rail to rebuild the 90MACs into the then new SD70ACu. Now, what is the SD70ACu? The SD70ACu was created by Norfolk Southern and Progress Rail from rebuilding problematic SD90MACs into more reliable locomotives with similar specs as the SD70ACe. The units would receive an EMD ACE style cab, along with the new Mitsubishi's electronics replacing the Siemens electronics. A new 710 G3B prime mover was also added, creating the same 4,300 horsepower as before. This would also bring the units up to EPA Tier 2 emission standards. The units would be moved out of storage later in the summer of 2018 to the Progress Rail locomotive rebuilding plant in Kentucky, where rebuilding would begin. The units were numbered from 7,000 to 7,059. All units would be released throughout 2019 and the following years. Although this rebuild did not remedy most issues, many issues still remain, such as microprocessor failures, engine stalls, and wheel slip issues. However, all units remain in service despite those issues. Alright, now what about special paint? CP units 7010 through 7019 RIP CP 7011 are painted in a commemorative heritage scheme based on the Royal Canadian Pacific script and block scheme, typically worn on the F and E units in the 1950s. 7010 to 7015 are script units, with 7016 to 7019 dressed up in the block paint scheme. The units were painted in the summer of 2019 to be released the same year. The units would be brought out to run a business train for their inaugural run. Now 7020 to 7023 are painted to honor military. 7020 honors the Canadian military and is painted in a very sharp army green with black lettering. 7021 is the Arid Regions unit honoring Desert War veterans. 7022 is the Navy unit decorated in battleship gray and a maroon red underbody. Now 7023, one of my personal favorites, is the Tom Cruise Top Gun unit, aka the Air Force unit. However, the last unit, 6644, which does not follow any of the number series, is the D-Day / World War II Memorial Unit. 6644 is actually the date of D-Day, which is June 6, 1944.
We do not care.
And is dressed up in a green, gray, and white camo with white stripes on the rear. Now, before I forget, CP still has 3 ex-Union Pacific SD9043MACs on the active roster. They can usually be found on MAU trains or in general freight. The units still retain their original UP armor yellow and road number with CP patching. The units are CP 3649, 3712, and 3747. Although practically all SD90MACs are out of service, with only the 3 units running in revenue service, rebuilds or not, the big units continue to sit on the shop tracks due to maintenance issues. Continue to serve the rail network, pulling trains and making crews want to why the damn unit. However, these units help keep our economy running and will always be a part of the history of Canada's largest railroad, the Canadian Pacific Railway. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would like to apologize for the big delays of this specific episode, as this one took a lot of time and research. Thank you to all the people who submitted photos and videos for both the SD90MAC and the SD70ACu for use in this video. Make sure to stay tuned for the next episode, where I will be covering the General Electric AC4400CW. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.